How's it going? So today on BKRsport, we are back at doing a part number 5 of The Last Dance reaction. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, 3, or 4 yet, then you should probably go and check those out. And if you don't know what this series is about, well, then you definitely should go and check those out because it's about the Chicago Bulls. But you would have known that if you already watched the previous episodes. But basically, The Last Dance is a documentary on Netflix that surrounds the 97-98 Chicago Bulls season with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Denis Rodman, Phil Jackson, you know, the whole cast. And it's a fantastic documentary series. It really is. It is absolutely unbelievable. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you need to go and check it out. It's all about the organizational structure rather than the team on the court. And Jerry Krause actually says that in part number 5 as well. And I know that Jerry Krause is a very divisive figure. And I can understand both sides of it. I obviously lean towards the kind of not liking him side more than the liking him side. However, Charles Barkley actually came out recently and said that this wasn't really Krause and it wasn't really his issue. It wasn't really his fault that the Bulls broke up. It was more so Gary Reinsdorf. And it's like, okay, well that's an interesting take considering he's saying that Reinsdorf basically forced this situation and basically forced all of this to happen. And I can see and I can understand it, how he didn't want to pay the players, he didn't want to pay Michael Jordan, he didn't want to pay Scottie Pippen, yet he still wanted to keep winning. Jerry Krause is just as much at fault here. He's just as much at fault. So let's not try and take away the villain status from him because in reality, he knowingly created bad relationships with his players because he believes so much in the organizational structure of the organization rather than the actual team itself. But this episode was absolutely fantastic, so let's get talking about it. Here is The Last Dance, episode number 5. I love the way that this episode opened up. Obviously, Kobe Bryant passed away earlier in this year, which is, you know, rest in peace, my brother. I did post a video about that and how much he meant to me, and I know how much, obviously, he means to the NBA community and the sporting community as a whole. We all know that, we all understand that. So when this episode dropped, it hit different, guys. It hit different because we knew that we're going to see an interview with Kobe. We know what's happened, and I'm even nearly getting a little bit teary right now as we're talking about it, so we're not going to talk too much about that, but I do really appreciate and love how this episode was opened with in loving memory of Kobe Bryant. And it's really funny how one of the opening quotes of this episode was about Kobe Bryant and from the boys on the East side, because they opened up in the All-Stars when the East was going up against the West, Michael Jordan going up against Kobe Bryant. This was when Kobe Bryant's really early days, and they said something like, that little Lakers boy going to take everyone one-on-one, and they were talking in the dressing room how worried they were. Well, not necessarily worried, but they just knew that he was a player who takes it by the balls. Like, he takes what he wants, he grabs it, he doesn't let it come to him, he goes straight forward to it, and that's what we all know Kobe to be like. But at this time, it's actually kind of before he came out and exploded. People knew what was coming, but he hadn't exploded. So it was really good to, you know, see how much they respected him even before his, you know, his prime, before his peak. They could see that this guy knew what he wanted and he went to it. He didn't wait for it to come to him, but he went for it. So really respectful to Kobe there before he actually hit his prime. I was actually expecting a little bit more from Kobe Bryant. Like, obviously that's not his fault. That's the producers and the people organising the episode and organising the series fault. However, I was expecting a little bit more, but then again, it obviously isn't the Lakers show, it's the Chicago Bulls show, it's the Michael Jordan show, not the Kobe Bryant show, so I can understand why there wasn't too much, but I do love when Kobe said that, you know, although he won 5 championships, a lot of people obviously ask him, oh, who would have won in a one-on-one between you and Michael Jordan? And the most respectful thing I've ever heard was when he said, well, look, you don't get me without Michael Jordan. Because obviously they had a really great friendship, they loved each other as brothers, he was like a mentor. Michael Jordan was like a mentor to Kobe Bryant. So it was a little bit, I feel like he feels it's a little bit disrespectful. It's like asking about your dad. It's like saying, you know, who would win in a, it's like who would say, it's like saying who would win between you and your dad in a way, because that was what Michael Jordan was like. Obviously, they thought of each other as brothers, but Michael Jordan was a lot older than him. He came through the system a lot earlier and had a lot to teach Kobe. So without Michael, Kobe doesn't happen in his opinion. So he feels like it's a little bit disrespectful, and that's really awesome respect that they had between the two. When he said that a lot of people ask him who would win in a one-on-one, firstly, obviously he believes he would have won. He's not going to say he would have won because I think he said that he never lost a one-on-one in his life, which I personally don't believe, because there would have been at one stage somewhere in a corner, you know, someone would have beaten him. I don't know. I wasn't even really a massive basketball fan in the early 2000s because I was obviously really young. I was born in 1994, so I didn't even hit 10 until I was in 2004, and Kobe was definitely his peak then. So it was really good to see Michael's guidance for Kobe and how much Kobe really looked up to Michael and realised that his game is a direct result, in a way. Obviously, it does come down to Kobe as well, but in a way, the style of Kobe's game came from Michael, and it's great to see that such a guy that believes in himself so much and believes in his ability so much understands what he took from somebody else. So I thought that was really good to take from this. Then we moved into basically the innovation of branding and players' individuality compared to the team's branding and utilising the name on the back of the shirt rather than the name on the front of the shirt. And I find that in a lot of other like sports, like football for example, I'll use Manchester City for example, we take a massive approach on the name on the front of the shirt means more than the name on the back of the shirt. But in America, it seems like it's more about the name on the back of the shirt than it does on the front of the shirt. And if you don't know what I'm referring to there, obviously Jordan is on the back, so Michael Jordan has his name on the back. And on the front is the Chicago Bulls logo. At this point, it seemed like they were really trying to profit off the individual player's likeness and his ability to create a fandom and create a community around his name rather than the actual team, because they're going to profit from the team. And I can understand this because they're going to profit from the team no matter what. You know, everyone in Chicago loves the Bulls. Maybe not so much now because they're terrible, but they still will always back the Bulls. But with this, you can gain that extra influence from the player's likability. And Michael Jordan obviously ended up becoming the biggest player, the best player of all time. One of the best players of all time, especially for his era. Best player of all time for his era. But I'm not going to argue with LeBron fans because, no, I'm a massive LeBron fan and I'm not going to get into that debate right now. We can do a video if you guys want it. Go in the comment section below and let me know if you want me to talk about, you know, best players of all time. Now, this next part is a huge influential part in this episode where basically I never knew how much Michael Jordan actually hated Nike. Now, Michael Jordan and Nike is synonymous, you know, they are together nowadays, and I've grown up knowing that Jordan and Nike are like, that's it, they're together. And it's incredible how much they've grown. And it was actually, this was a massive stat that I heard. I believe the deal was they wanted to get, I think it was $3 million in the first 4 years in sales. So they wanted to return investment, $3 million on sales in the first 4 years. But in fact, in the first year, 1 year, they made 126 million American dollars. So I'm not going to do the math here. Well, if we're going to do the math, that's like that's ginormous. It's absolutely ginormous. In 4 years, they wanted to make $3 million. In 1 year, they actually made $126 million. So with this being said, Michael Jordan innovated the individuality of sports rather than the team aspect of sports. So funnily enough, if you actually look back at previous episodes and previous discussions that we've had on this channel, the point of the previous episodes were talking about Jordan and working as a team with his players and realizing they're also going to make the shot if you get them the ball. But in reality, this one, in regards to branding, really tried to focus on Jordan himself rather than the team aspect. So it's very funny how kind of there's two sides throughout this story that kind of, yeah, they're good for both. They're good to show team aspect and individuality aspect. There's team aspect, individuality aspect. Team aspect when it comes to on the court, and individuality aspect when it comes to branding, sponsorships, monetary, finances. It really is incredible. This series is really touching on so many bases. Now, going back to back in any sport is incredibly difficult. Now, the first thing you think of is like, of course, please, everyone's trying to win. And it's like, well, yes, that is the point. But the main point is that when you are the current champions, people look at your game as their grand final. So they're going to play bigger and better against you because they're more hyped up. They know what they need to do to try and achieve a win, a shock win. So they're going to aim for your game. And that's every single game you have throughout the season. If you're, say, look, I don't know who was terrible back then. Let's use the Phoenix Suns now, to be honest. Like, you know, Devin Booker's great. They have a decent enough team, but they're just not great. No one's going to look at the Phoenix Suns game and be like, okay, we need to be hyped up, ready to go, bang on, let's go. But they're going to look at a team like the Milwaukee Bucks or the Los Angeles Lakers, and that's going to be their final series. That's going to be their grand final. So every game is a lot more difficult for you than it would be if you are, say, the Phoenix Suns. But then again, in retrospect, the Phoenix Suns would find it difficult against any random team right now rather than the big teams. But you get what I'm saying. When you're the champions, and going back to back, there's more of a focus on beating you specifically than there is just winning their game. Now, we obviously know they do achieve this and they go back to back to back and then break and then back to back to back, but the point remains, going back to back is probably the most difficult. I reckon going back to back to back is less difficult than going back to back, because you know that you got through that back to back season. You know that you can withstand and withhold from those teams coming at you with full force, knowing that you are the best. So I feel like going back to back to back on that third year is less difficult than going back to back on the second year. Now, that's an interesting take. Love to hear your comments on that. Then we get into Toni Kukoc, and we're not going to talk too much about this. Obviously, there was a massive Olympics vibe about this one, and I was kind of confused why prior to the 92 Olympics in Barcelona, no one from the NBA really went into the USA team. I find that really interesting. Like, why? What was the point? I don't get why they wouldn't include them previously and why they just decided to throw Michael Jordan and big time players into it then. I don't get that. I didn't really understand why that would be a thing, but it is what it is. But then here we go, Jerry Krause, the king of bad time decisions, the king of bad time decision making. Whether his decision making was wrong or not, it was wrong in hindsight. That's in hindsight. He was obviously thinking differently at the time. I don't understand what his thought process was, but like I said, Reinsdorf obviously had a massive financial impact on the decision making with not wanting to pay certain players. But the situation regarding Toni Kukoc was unfortunate. Obviously, Toni didn't do anything wrong, but because Jerry was in this kind of battle with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan and wanted to focus on bringing this other player in, Kukoc from Croatia, and really focusing on that rather than the actual team that he had. It was like looking at the grass green on the other side, basically, and Jordan and Pippen really showed Kukoc what was up. Like, you know, they proved dominant, they proved who was boss. And unfortunately, Toni had to withstand that and take that and just not really have any, like, it wasn't his fault, and I feel bad for him. And I feel like Michael and Scottie would feel bad for him now that he had to put up with that shit. Really, he didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to make it in the big city of Chicago. He was just trying to make it in the NBA and in basketball. But Jerry Krause, being Jerry Krause, was Jerry Krause. So that was obviously what threw that out of whack. And to finish this up, we'll briefly refer to the politics situation. I don't really want to get into this too much. I can understand both sides. Michael obviously didn't want to impact his brand with the Liberal Party. He didn't want to impact his brand and the potential loss of sponsorship or potential loss of money making, and that I feel like will come in the next episode because they talk about his gambling. But we obviously see with players like Muhammad Ali and even LeBron James nowadays, they're just not afraid to speak out, and because they're making quite a lot of money, or they're making enough money to get by, so they want to be an influence. And I personally believe that Michael did do the wrong thing, but that's Michael's decision to make, and if he didn't want to impact his brand, then that's okay. But I feel like it probably didn't negatively impact his brand further within the African American community. Obviously, it's probably thought of better nowadays, but at the time, I feel like a lot of people would have been negatively impacted severely from this, and would have really lost a lot of respect for him. Really lost a lot of respect for him, because at this time, that would have been something that you should stand up for, because there was a severe, we're not going to get into it, but there was a severe racist issues still remain in this day, and it would have been great for the highest, most prolific NBA star of African American ethnicity advocate and advise on getting behind the African American community. I would have thought that would be just common sense. I know LeBron would do that nowadays. Obviously, Muhammad Ali was a massive advocate for this kind of issues, but like I said, I understand Michael. It is what it is. It didn't happen. He's still the greatest player of all time, one of, and that's that. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up so I know that you're enjoying this content. Episode 6 has come out already, so we will react to that one in the next couple of days. There is still 4 more episodes after that to go of this series, which has been absolutely unreal. And then we're going to be moving into Sunderland, which is a football club in England, which is just diabolical. They were in the Premier League, now they're not in the Premier League, and they're diabolical. Really, really different. If you're not a part of the BK Army yet, then what are you damn well doing? Go down there, hit the subscribe button. We post daily. We're doing live streams and posts every single day, so you should be here if you love your sport, whether it be America or England or Australia, anywhere around the world that we bloody cover it. So definitely go down there, hit the subscribe button. But that is going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.